Hello and welcome to One Stop Co-op Shop, your one stop for board game news and reviews. Hold on to your pants, it's time for a special episode.
Hey, Peter.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
Peter, good to see you. Great to be here. Nice to see everybody here. This is awesome.
I mean, is no one concerned that we have like a little demon pygmy in the house or
Sock
something
puppet.
like coming out?
We have
of it?
sock puppet Colin.
Yeah, or like, oh man, like one of those possessed puppets with like the top hat and the monocle. I don't want that. Hello, everyone.
Hey!
That'll be a problem.
This is not professional.
Hey, I'm Peter and I'm here with Steve.
Hey,
And
Peter.
Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
And Colin. Hi, everybody. I'm still here. And Barrett.
Hey, greetings. Good to see everybody.
And Mike.
Hi. So wait, can you hear everyone
Yes,
except Peter?
I checked everybody else's mic except my own, by the way. So we got that going
Professional
for us.
outfit, my God. How do we make it to 300? That is impossible.
So if everybody can hear me now, yay, there's Peter. Okay, so we got a couple people in the chat already. By the way, this is episode 300 of the podcast, but we're also doing it live. We're doing it live, so come over to One Stop Co-op Shop streamed if you want to see what the joke's about, because you're going to hear Colin on the podcast, but he's not actually here, and so I'm just making funny jokes every time it's Colin's turn to speak, and then we're going to edit them in, and you won't even know any better, similar to the first episode Colin was ever in, where...
I'm glad you specified that they're funny jokes.
I mean, I'm the one making them, so they have to be funny. Which means they're probably not very funny at all. And you can just laugh at me, which is fine. I like it better that way.
Peter demands laughter for his jokes, or he stops being friends with you. So
It's
a painful burden to bear.
Considering
But
at this point, I don't know, man. Forced laughter. Ew.
I'm gonna start putting in the like those laugh tracks.
They're called laugh tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
see, Peter, that was funny. Did you hear? Did you
See,
hear what Bear
here's
did
the
there?
funny part for the
That was
podcast.
humorous.
Baird's gonna be
There you go,
edited
man.
out.
Thank you for bringing that.
And it's just gonna be Jason laughing at me for the actual podcast.
I like that.
No, I won't do that. But welcome everybody. How are you?
Hanging in. It's been a long day. It's gonna be a long week, but glad to be here.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the top 3 games that made us the gamers we are today for episode 300 of the podcast. And we're going to talk about, and I think we'll all do it a little bit differently, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Steve was asking earlier, like, what are we supposed to do? So his list will be interesting.
So many options.
Well, you know, Steve, he wants to house rule the podcast so that
Exactly.
I didn't use games, I used tables, my 3 most formative tables, and there you go.
Gaming accessories. There we go. All right. So what we're going to do is our top 3, and we're just going to go around the table, starting with our number 1, talk a little bit about ourselves and get a little bit about our history. And at the end of the podcast, we're going to take questions from everybody in the chat live. So if you have any questions, save them up till the end, or if you do them in the middle, we'll probably still save them to the end anyway. So
One Stop Co-op Shop fans, just this is your chance to get to know us as people. You've been talking about us. I mean, the website, the YouTube channel just reached 30,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And we are just continuing to blow up, and it's nice to slow down the content train a little bit and not review a game and not have like a giant thing on the table and not learn a bunch of rules and, not withstand the fire of comments about everything that we did wrong and all that like stuff.
That's ridiculous.
Right? This is
No.
It's nice to slow down and just, get to.
Oh, yes. I got somebody else who likes to sing. I like that. Sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
Oh, Old songs though. I need to update my my catalog.
I mean,
here.
Peter only sings like random. What even is the boom boom song?
Boom,
Peter? Like,
boom,
what genre is
boom,
that?
let me
What year
say
is that?
way-o.
Is that the 80s? Is that the
Yeah,
early
it's like
90s?
late 80s, early
Well,
90s, I feel.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
Jock Jams. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
you're
exactly
Jock
what
Jams.
that's from. That's hilarious.
Right.
That is from Jock Jams. So we're starting to learn about each other already. Yeah.
Oh, I got a Jock Jam for you on my list. A definite
Nice.
Jock Jam game.
I like that. I like that. Colin, what do you think? I think this is great. I want to do this all the time.
It's gonna be a long night.
Horrendous.
All right.
The best part is
man.
he's got to remember all the things where he was going to put Colin when he goes to actually podcast and actually gets him talking.
Or I'll just leave this in
Right.
and it'll be fine. People don't know. They can't see him. It's all good.
By the way, I have one job and I don't want to forget it. Before we get to the full-on episode, we have to thank some of our awesome Patreon supporters. Patreon has been getting a lot bigger very quickly because we've started doing 2 or more exclusive videos on the Patreon channel every month. I just did one on the top tame games I called and regretted for those fans of Shelf Life. So just want to thank a few of our awesome supporters that keep the podcast running, like this right now. We got Matthew Chapman, Penny Spur, and Mackenzie Fox. You know what? I'll do a 4th one because we got a lot of new patrons. And Jonathan Kokoski. Matthew, Penny, Mackenzie, and Jonathan, thank you, and thanks to everybody. Definitely could not be doing this without you. That's my spiel.
Absolutely.
Back to the episode.
Colin says thanks. All right. So we also have a special shout out. I said I was going to save all comments to the end, but I see Francis Kodama in the chat says hello from Brazil, and I know for our podcast, Brazil is one of the top areas we get our listens to, or from. So yeah, thank you so much, Francis, for being a listener, being a viewer of the One Stop Co-op Shop stream channel, and go Brazil.
We are crushing it in Rio.
That is true.
Let's
Actually,
do it.
it is like one of our top areas. I don't know, like I love Rio. I gotta go sometime. We're gonna have our first co-op con in Rio. Let's
Let's do it.
That'd be fantastic.
Oh,
Let's
yes,
make it happen.
absolutely. All right, so let's get started. We're going to talk about our top 3 games, starting with you, Steve. So, Steve, what's the first game that made you the gamer you are today?
Yeah, let's start with what got me into gaming, is I had a whole path on it. And start with, I'm going to use the term collectible games, because I really delved into 2 games in particular, Magic the Gathering and HeroClix. And
Sure.
these both were huge for me growing up. I played these games with my brothers, and they went to tournaments, and we played together in tournaments and with my family. In fact, my dad even got involved in it. He started building Magic decks and played with us as well. So that whole fostering of exploring how to build a deck and how to customize it and change trying different strategies out, that whole exploration element, that's where it became real for me. That's where I really enjoyed it quite a bit in that environment. And of course I played in tournaments, so I was trying to win, but it wasn't why I was there to play the game. It's more just hey, I want to try this fun deck. And that's what drove me into it. In fact, I had some fun comments, or discussions to say with others in the stores where like, oh yeah, are you buying some Magic cards? Yeah, I'm buying some cards. What's your combo? I'm like, I don't have a combo. What do you mean?
I like goblins.
There's something more than just getting the biggest green creature you can, like just an 8/8 worm for 10 mana. That you can build a deck with more than that.
Exactly. So I would build a deck, and the whole point of the deck was my creatures all had to die at the end of my turn. Could I make this work? And so I just built a deck that was these silly ideas, and I made a deck full of eggs to crack open, stuff like that. So I had a lot of fun exploring it. But yeah, that is a huge factor.
Well, yeah,
when it comes to gaming.
Oh, go ahead, Jason.
It could have been my game. So I was to age myself, I was born in 77. I was in high school in 93, 94, 95 when Magic first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at the perfect age, right? High school, and I had the Complete Strategist New York City, right there. We had all the first cards, and I had my little deck. I had a little common deck with the white. It was a white-green, fill the field with 1/1 creatures by turn 3. I had 8 of them out there, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna play Magic forever. And then another friend of mine dropped like a $4 card that killed all World War creatures, and I'm like, "Where'd you get that?" It's like, "Oh, I bought it separate." It's like, "Oh my god,
I'm out."
As soon as that happened, I'm like, "I'm out." I may have even had like a Black Lotus at some point, and I was like, "No, I'm not doing this." But yeah, it could have been. You could have been a contender.
I mean, I love Magic. It's later in my career than what I'm going to start with, but it's a game that got me into it too. But I do see a lot of that in Steve's gaming nowadays. Like, he loves deck building from Lord of the Rings. He definitely builds like these quirky combo decks that nobody else would try, but Steve does it and he pulls it off, man. So it's real fun seeing that. So I definitely see that in Steve for sure. All right, Jason, man, what's your first game?
Speaking of high school, so I go back to high school, and I was gonna put Dungeons and Dragons. We before the call, Michael said we were gonna do RPGs. Like I could have totally. I felt like I wanted to do some board games. So I had a group, a D&D group, and whenever we didn't meet, the DM was also a hockey fan, and he had a board game called Stratomatic Hockey. Stratomatic, people. What? Bairnt? No, there's no dragons. There's no Stratomatic dungeons. Are you a sports
football?
guy?
I actually used to have that little football that you would actually turn on a thing, and the guys would vibrate around the thing.
You know they're remaking that.
Oh, nice.
But yeah,
yep. Like
I should be a hockey fan from Minnesota, but I don't watch a lot of hockey.
There is a Stratomatic football. There is a Stratomatic baseball. Mm-hmm. There's a Stratomatic version of all these games. So Stratomatic is a brand, and basically it's kind of a real dirt simple game. Like, you have your board. The board looks like a field, and then you have cards, and the cards are the players. So like you have a deck of players basically, and depending on how good the player is, it map out in terms of stats. And it was a dice roller. Like, all the versions of the game are dice rollers. So like you're rolling on charts, and depending on how good the player is, then, you get a goal, or you get a hit, or you get a strikeout, or whatever version you're playing. So, it's not the type of game that would have, as my story is a thematic gamer, and I'm a huge sports guy. And so like if you put Keith Kachuk on a card, I'm playing it. If you put Ron Hextall, my favorite goalie growing up, I'm playing it. If you put the New York Islanders, so we played a ton of Stratomatic. And I even played solo because we would draft up teams and we'd have all mixed up teams. Stratomatic baseball, like you can get old teams, like they sell the 27 Yankees. So like that's how I learned the rosters was Stratomatic. Of all because I'm a Yankees fan, and I'm a Jets fan. I would look at all these old cards, and that is how I deepened my love of sports, but through the board game. And that was through high school. Like, I don't play it anymore. Actually, wait, do I have it? Holy what? Oh, sorry about that.
It's all good. That can...
I just remembered. I always picked this up.
Oh, man, Jason. You got to bring that to PAX this year.
Good Lord. What am I doing with
Stratomatic Hockey. Holy cow.
Wow, what year? Hold on a second. This will tell you exactly when I bought this thing. So hold on a sec. Marcus Naslund, 2002. There you go. That's how old this thing is. And I got all this is what a Stratomatic card looks like, by the way. So you got it's just a grid.
It's definitely just a rolling dice. Move people around. Roll a lot of dice in all the Stratomatic games for sure. I've never played hockey, but that's freaking awesome, dude.
It's fun. It's so much. I would play it. Like, I mean, I would probably because they update
you will play it.
The teams.
We're playing it at PAX this year, man. Bring it.
I'm not bringing this. Are you kidding? Look at the size. This thing's heavy. I can't believe I still have Stratomatic. Wow, I did not plan to do that. But yeah, I mean, it was like, for a person who didn't have access to board games, like, I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in Sunset Park. No one's playing board games in Sunset Park. There's no, I didn't watch Star Wars until I was like 20. There was none of that. Like, I was like, it was street stuff. So then, so anything, I needed like different things to get me into the hobby. And the fact that I had this sports thing, which is really kind of a weirdo thing, was awesome, man. I haven't played it in 20 years, but I would play it happily. now. If anybody had like interesting teams or whatever, so Stratomatic products, hockey, baseball.
We're doing it, man. We're doing it. We'll figure out a way somehow.
Are you a Strato
I
guy?
played baseball a little bit, but I've never played hockey, and hockey is my favorite sport. So I don't know how.
Oh, we got to get the Island. We got to get the 2021 team that made the finals.
Well, right. We have to get the new ones, not the Islanders from this year. Oh my gosh! By the way, speaking of. Yeah, so I never knew why I kept saying boom, boom, boom when I play games. Like, it just came to me. So every Islanders game during the intermissions, they play that song. Like, yes. So that it was like,
yes.
Yeah, it was subconsciously in the back of my mind. So that's where that came from, by the way. I was listening to an Islanders game. I'm like, oh my God, they're playing the boom, boom, boom song. I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably where I got it from. Like, just watching Islanders games. Very cool. By the way, we've got Rat Hammer in the chat says he's from Puerto Rico too. So there you go.
Hey, hola mi gente.
Nice. All right. Well, now the one we've been anticipating. Not Steve, Jason, you guys were great, but now we got to go to Colin and find out what his number one game he wants to talk about is. I love Monopoly. I grew up playing Monopoly. My only problem was I had no friends. So I ended up playing by myself, and that's why I became a solo gamer. When you don't have friends, Monopoly can be fun. Thank you.
That's not a true story, is it? Like, that's
not
what
he told me that. Just like he rates in every time for the podcast and tells us all about the his contributions at the beginning for his Patreon message at the beginning. It's all true.
I mean, because I played a lot of Monopoly as a kid. I'm not putting that on my list.
Well, it's Colin's number one, so don't bust on him, man. Don't bust on him.
I played the tar out of this Simpsons Monopoly when I was a kid. I'll tell you that right now. For the podcast listeners, I am showing the oldness today. It is
That's
great.
Awesome. All right. So, Bairnt, it can only be a disappointment after that.
Yeah, I don't got Monopoly. Sorry, that's not me. But you can tell by the background, I grew up actually. Believe it or not, my game we used to play all the time was Dungeon, the original Dungeon. This was old. This is super old. I'm again age-wise, born in '76. This is super old. And
you have me beat.
Woo, 1 year.
1 year.
So we played Dungeon so much. Then we got Hero Quest, and we started playing Hero Quest and Dungeon together. So believe it or not, I grew up playing dungeon crawlers before they were even called dungeon crawlers. They were just
called Dungeon,
and it was really cool because you'd take like wizard. It was.
Oh no, I know, Dungeon. I have it. It's right over here.
Dungeon.
I'm not.
Oh, yeah, I got it in the back. I didn't know we were doing show and tell. I would have gone and grabbed it. I have it in the back. I also started, so we played a lot of Dungeon, and we had Hero Quest, and then, of course, Dungeon and Dragons hit. So we did all three of these things. So basically, anything with the word dungeon in it, we just jumped on top of and played, like our little group of people that we'd play with. Because I'm from Minnesota, so usually about half the year, we're hibernating in our house. And either if you're not playing hockey, you're hibernating in your house. So we've really been playing board games since the dawn of time when it came to our ages. We would just wake up and go to a friend's house and start play some games. It was just all we would do. And then, of course, the Atari came out, and the games kind of went down there, and the Atari went up there, and all of a sudden we're playing video games together. So, but at the time before that, it was just
play video games together? Yeah. You couldn't play any of those games together.
Huh?
You were just sitting there watching.
Well, kind of sometimes. Hey, you know what? Fun fact, if you don't know it, I'm actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for Warlords. I actually won the Warlords tournament of Atari in Vegas.
All right, this is why we're having this podcast. Who knew?
Exactly. This is exactly what I was talking about.
All I can picture is like you as Fred Savage wearing the power glove in The Wizard, like just being amazing.
Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome. We went there for an Atari convention, and we actually I met the guy who made Frogger. Actually beat him at Warlords. That was pretty awesome. My friend had an Atari, like the Frogger cartridge, got it signed by him. But no, that's my claim to fame. It has nothing to do with board games, but there you go. It's my claim to fame. So yes, my game was Dungeon. We would play Dungeon all the time. You could be a wizard, the warrior or the paladin, and like all of the, and they'd have all, and whoever it was, you had to get a certain amount of gold. So you'd always want to decide if you're going to take the really crappy character, but you only need like 500 gold, and you can get to the exit and win. Or do you take the hardest character, the heavy hitter, and you run in and cast fire fireball and hope that you hit the right guy. It was a really fun game. It's still, I actually taught my kids how to play it, so we've played it with my kids. So it's still around, it's still relevant. It's probably not as good as some of the Dungeon Crawlers out there now, but it's still good. Still good. We like it. And Heroes Quest, of course, always kind of fun. I don't have any of that anymore. That's long gone. That one, my friend actually had it, so he's the one who's got it. I don't know whatever happened to it. But Dungeons & Dragons is still alive and kicking. I have a group that we still play with on Saturdays, usually every week. That's our group now. It's really fun. We actually restarted this now with a bunch of people.
Is your number one Dungeons & Dragons or Dungeon? I'm
everything
confused.
comes full circle eventually.
Okay.
Dungeons & Dragons. I used to play when I was young.
But
that's what we played. We were really stupid. Like, we'd be like, I mean, this is like when we're young. It's like people would be like, oh, okay, you go in there, you beat the guy, you get a +10 sword. Oh, you get a +10 sword. Yeah. I'm like, they're kids. What do you get with a +10 sword? Like, it's ridiculous. Now, of course, we play for real. We actually do real, like, we play so it actually makes sense instead of just, oh, okay, you got a +10 sword, you're level 4, now let's go take on, like, the God of Thunder.
I mean, Thor is beatable. I mean, if you got a +10 sword.
True. Yeah, the +10 sword, man, you can take on about anything.
All right. Well, that was good. See, we're learning about people. We learned something new today about Bairnt. Certainly, nobody would have guessed Bairnt is in the Guinness Book of World Records. That is for darn sure. All right, Mike, what's your number one?
My number one is Dungeons & Dragons as well. Yeah,
Classic.
I mean, it was kind of between that and the early World of Darkness RPGs, Vampire the Masquerade, especially. My older brothers had campaigns going of both of those, and I would just watch them like with extreme jealousy, like come over and be like, "Can I play?" And they'd be like, "Yes, here's your character. They died. Go away." You know, and just
here's your character. They died. Go away.
I mean, they humored me a little bit. Like one time, my oldest brother ran me through like a little bit of a campaign of Lord of the Rings, Middle Earth role playing, but that. It wasn't so much the role-playing, because I actually didn't get to play very much when I was a kid, but that's what got me in the game store that was near me. There was one called Dream Wizards in Rockville, Maryland, and I was in there. I would just, like, sit in the stacks. Some game stores have, like, stacks of RPGs, like, source books. I would just sit in the stacks, like, 7-year-old Mike, and just read and read, not knowing what half the words are, seeing pictures perhaps I should not have.
Satanic panic.
Oh yeah, man! I was definitely that got me on the reefer madness.
That got me
like
on the reefer.
But yeah, so that got me in game stores. That got me playing other types of games. That got me into choose your own adventure books and like Lone Wolf and fighting fantasy and stuff because I wanted to like have solo kind of RPG experiences. I started like making my own RPGs. Like that got me into game design at a very young age. Yeah, so that was like I could have named like chess and cards and I would play like poker with my parents and like cribbage and rummy and all that kind of thing. But yeah, Dungeons and Dragons was definitely the real like love grab me by the heart kind of moment early on. And I mean I still not much recently, but I played Redbox, I played 2nd edition, I played 3rd edition, I played 3.5, I played Pathfinder, I played 4th, I play 5th. So, I mean, I've continued to love that system for many, many years.
I mean, the thing about D&D is, it, like you said before, I love how you describe it as being, like, you're not playing, but you're still in it. Right. You're in the game store. You're in, like, I remember I would roll characters. That's why I like role players so much. Like, it evokes that. Like, I would roll characters, they would go nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
And I would offer them to, like, my my DM, like, okay, here's some NPCs. I'll hook you up, and I would read source books. Like, I mean, that's kind of why I don't play as much. Like, I'm a huge source book guy, and most of the DMs I met were very resentful of that because I always knew more than they did, and they didn't really care. Like, oh, let's just go in and murder and kill. And I'm like, but I want to be a harper, and I want to be like in plugged into, and I want to dial Elminster up on the phone. And like, we're not doing any of that.
That's great.
Nice.
Into it.
All right. Well, we'll get to my number one now. We'll slow it down a little bit with a little bit of disappointment here with my number one. And so I was thinking the same thing, Mike. I was thinking cards. I used to play Yahtzee with my family all the time. I played cards with my grandparents. I played Magic. I certainly played through high school. That had an influence on me. Hearts, Spades, all those games. A lot of trick-taking games growing up, during lunchtime, during high school, and middle school even. So a lot of that, but none of those made the top of my list. The number one game for me was backgammon growing up. I think it was the first game. Yeah, I think it was the first game that I played that like really hit me like, wow, I got to think. I'm just rolling dice, right? And I'm just moving two pieces, but the way I moved them in concert, the way I moved them together, just really sung to me in some special way. And I think, you know, even to today, I've got a lot of games in my library, and a lot of games that I love are dice rollers. And I just love that feeling of, yeah, I didn't roll the best thing, but let's see what I can do with what I have. And let's try to come up with some kind of strategy. It's not all about grandmaster strategy all the time. It's sometimes just about having a fun time, chucking some dice, and, you know, making the best of your situation. And yeah, so and I think that leads to light, fun games as well. And I, you know, that you'll definitely see that in me. And it's funny listening to everybody's number one game. I see a lot of that in them. I mean, obviously, Steve, we talked about with the deck building thing. Definitely Jason being the omni gamer, starting with sporting games, and he's talking about D&D. He's been talking about Magic, like all of it. You know, just in that number one. Colin's love of Monopoly is well documented.
Beat that drum. Beat it. Beat it.
I mean, Bairnt starts with Dungeon and then goes to Dungeons and Dragons, right? And Mike, yeah.
And then goes to more Dungeon.
And then Mike with his, you know, role playing and storytelling background. So yeah, no, it's funny how we can kind of I'm drawing parallels here between what everybody's favorite games are and, you know, their gamer personality. So let's keep the ball rolling though. Steve, what's your number two?
So this is going a little bit into my history, how I got into the gaming hobby. So I was playing, like I said before, the Magic Gathering HeroClix, but that wasn't really the gaming hobby. Like, I was in the game store, like similar to Mike, right? You know, looking through stuff. I was looking through different cards. Oh, I want this card. I want this HeroClix. This would be great for my team. But I kind of avoided the board games because I felt overwhelmed. There's just so many there, and I didn't really know anything about them. Well, in college, we were playing Magic and HeroClix with the guys in college. A lot of fun. One guy's like, "Hey, you want to play a game with me?" I'm like, "Sure, I love playing games." He pulls out Catan. So sit down and play Catan. At this time, I was really into Civilization, the board game. So I sat down and played Catan. I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels like I'm building a civilization. This is awesome. I love this thing. Oh my gosh. I just got really engrossed in it. And then that took me to the next level to be like, okay, well, what can I do with this? And I found this expansion. So that made me understand that there's like a lot more to it. And I started putting all the expansions together and stuff like that. And then that brought me into the other section of the game store. I'm like, okay, here's Catan, here's all the expansions. Let's put things together. And then he also introduced me to Robo Rally at the same time. And then I wound up like just browsing around. Now I'm starting to get an idea of the taste of like what these other games are out there. I saw a giant bullet on the stand. It was Bang the Bullet, is what it was. I was like, what is this thing? So I was trying to find information on it, and the only place I could find information on it was Board Game Geek, this website. I think you guys might have heard of it.
Possible.
And from there, it's like it was all done. So like Catan brought me to the other side of the field, pulled me away from that Civ I loved a lot, and then from there into the board game hobby as a whole.
Yeah, so. Catan. I mean, that's a classic for sure. It's pulled a lot of people in. It was not my gateway game though, and I'm not going to get to my gateway game, but maybe we'll talk about it, you know, in the middle here somewhere. But Jason, how about you? What's your number two game?
Okay, so my number two, I'm going to go to grad school. Fast forward a little bit. So the first one was high school. Skip college for whatever reason. I don't know what happened with me in college. It's like I was really into college, like really into like studying for the only time in my life. So I didn't play much games. Grad school, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to get through this. So continued to play D&D, but we couldn't get a group. You know, we just couldn't make the group thing happen. Found something. Actually, my girlfriend at the time, or fiance at the time, introduced this game to me. I'm going to show you right now.
Oh, gosh.
Munchkin. Look at it. I don't even have the box anymore. This is original first printing from 2004, 5, and then whatever the expansions were. That's when I was in grad school. So it was like, you know, the first printing and everything. And we played the tar out of this thing. Like we had game nights, weekly game nights when we came over. We played a lot of Steve Jackson stuff. It was, Munchkin and Shade Geek and whatever, the little party-ish type games. We had a ton of fun. And, being a D&D person, being, a card person, I've always loved cards like Uno and, like you described, Steve, Peter. I confused Steve and Peter that time. I didn't do Mike and Peter. Sorry about that.
It's always Peter.
I talk a lot. It's not.
As long as I'm hitting Peter, right? So I mean, just like the combination of it, and the big thing people talk about is like, okay, at a high player count, it never ends. And because you're trading the cards, and there's like everybody can be defeated, and like we didn't care about that, like because we were having fun, and it was like we were just like this is full of Cheeto dust, and maybe a little bit of genuine draft or whatever we were having, and me and my fiance would play, just the two of us, and we'd play tournaments. Like we just keep on going and going, and exploring the decks, and we had the Super Munchkin and the Munchkin Vampire, and we loved the set. You grew out of that stuff, and I'm not with that girl anymore, but so like we kind of moved on a little bit, but it's still gonna hold a special place in my heart, especially especially if it's like a new gamer, like 15 years old. I know they're like a person. I have no problem. Hey, let's play Munchkin. It takes 20 minutes and play. So people talk junk about it, but y'all you know where to take that junk. Get out, Munchkin.
Nice.
My number 2.
All right, Colin. How about you? What's your number 2? I like Munchkin too.
Munchkin. My number 2.
But it's not my number 2. My number 2 is Warhammer 40K with all the expansions, and I have 27 armies that I painted up myself. Really, Colin? I didn't see you. I didn't see you as a 40K guy. Oh yeah, I love it. I love it.
Now, I was a 40K guy. Was anybody else a 40K guy?
I was a Warhammer Fantasy.
Okay, yeah, I was much more.
Too rich for my.
I had like the one partial army my mom could afford me for like my entire birthday and Christmas present, and then I never played it.
Yeah. So So we're learning a lot about Colin today. That's for sure.
I mean, just layers within
He's
layers.
He's like an onion
to this guy.
He is. He's like an onion. All right, Bairnt. Let's hear about your onion layer. Your next layer of your onion.
Okay, my next layer actually comes in college. So, of course, like I said, we're playing a lot of lots of Dungeons & Dragons, lots of fun games like that. Then all of a sudden, like I said, the Atari hit, then the Nintendo hit, then the Sega Master System, the Genesis, the Super Nintendo, the 64, all these, name them, PlayStation, keep coming. And so games went off my radar. Totally stopped playing board games. Was putting my money into video games, playing video games, all these fun video games and everything. And the next thing I know, I was like, you know what? I should get back into board games. So what I pulled out Axis and Allies.
Yeah.
We played an absolute ton of in college. We had a table down in like the lounge area that had this game on it all the time. And we'd play it all the time. We even got to the point where there's a buddy of mine that would play it almost every day. And we got to the point where by turn 2, we would already know the outcome of the game, because we already been like, okay, well, you got this country, that country's already has that one. There's gonna be no way I'm really gonna come back for this. We could finish these games in like an hour and a half. Where most people are like, oh my gosh, this is like an 8-hour all-night game. It's like, nope, we can do this in about an hour. We're good. We already know what's gonna happen. So we played so much of this game when I was in college, and this was also the time about when a little bit after that is when WizKids killed HeroClix. It pretty much died. Or no, what company had it before WizKids? Somebody had it before it or something. And it died. It went under. And so like you could buy just boxes of this stuff for like $1. And so this is also when I got into HeroClix. We bought so much of this, and we got like all these mutations and monsters. We got like, you name it, all this stuff. We had tons and tons of stuff. Then all of a sudden they got back the IP or something, and they put out a set called Hammer of Thor. And so my friends and I bought Hammer of Thor, and we're like, we should go to a tournament. So we walked into this little gaming store in my area called Twin Cities Comics. And we walked in there, and the judge's name was Adam, and we didn't know this. We had no idea. Me and my buddy Eric walk in, and we're like, and then the two guys are standing there, and like this other name, Chris, and like, what are you here for? I'm like, we're here for a tournament. And also, Chris is like, yes, we have players for a tournament. There's the 4 of us, and there's actually 4 prizes you could win. So we all just got the prize.
Yeah.
And then we all just played together.
Yeah.
It was just so fun. And so HeroClix, of course, then became huge in my life when that happened. And we would buy the new sets whenever they come out. So it went from kind of doing stuff together with Dungeon and stuff like that to these completely huge competitive games. An X-Wing hit, we started playing that without stop. So it just became this pure competitive, like just, I'm going to beat you down. I mean, even though we still would pick fun teams to play or like build fun little like spaceships and everything, You still wanted to win. There was no like, I'm just gonna just play this for fun. No, I got that. I got a plan. This guy's gonna be really good. And so I hit a very competitive part in my life. I'm starting with Axis and Allies, and then moving from there into HeroClix and X-Wing and all these other fun competitive games. So that was kind of where I went from to next in my gaming career.
By the way, little known fact. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Is it one of these days, Bairnt, we should get down and play some HeroClix together and co-op. We can do co-op in that one too, because you got your Fing Fing Foom, which should be in the kitchen, right?
It should be in the kitchen. My wife took it down. She told me to take it down, I should say. I said, why can't that be there? She made me take down Galactus as well, which is the Tower of Worlds. Why couldn't he be in a kitchen? I didn't really get that.
I mean, he eats, right? He should be there. Makes sense.
He's been banished to my game room along with all the rest of
HeroClix had co-op mode? What?
With these big bosses, yeah.
Little bit.
Big bosses you can fight co-op.
I mean, I still have all my HeroClix stuff in the other room. I guess I never got the bosses and stuff. Like, at some point, I was like, all right, it's...
Never played co-op. Played co-op. Always play.
It's probably not great. Let's be honest. All right.
What's your fact there, Mike?
What's my what?
Fact. You said, I have a little known fact. What was that fact?
I was going to say a little known fact that Bairnt is in the Guinness World Records for winning the least attended HeroClix tournament. So, he's a twofer.
That's right. I did actually become a judge for HeroClix for a while because one of the guys stepped down, and so I kind of took over for a while because I was just so into like learning the rules, seeing like how you can put powers together and all that stuff, and I just started really locked in all these characters and figuring out like the intricacies of how all the powers worked. It was really a fun system, and I'm sad I kind of got out of it, but I'm not at the same time because how many hundreds of dollars did you spend on it? I mean, I remember when I bought my first booster with my friend. I was like, look, it's on sale. It's $5. Let's just buy this. It's like this brick for like $5 because everything was dead. And so, of course, the joke with his wife was always like, I'd be like, Brian, I got the new booster set. And I'd walk in, his wife go, $5. This game's only $5. That's
Yeah, that doesn't last very long with HeroClix. I still have... Not HeroClix. I'm thinking HeroScape for some reason. I still have all my HeroScape stuff. I don't have HeroClix stuff. Sorry.
I remember HeroScape.
No, that's why I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute. I was thinking HeroScape for some reason. HeroClix. Got it. On the same page. All right, Mike, what's your number 2?
Yeah, so this one was tough. Well, mostly because I wasn't sure what my number 1 was going to be, but, I worked at a game store all throughout high school, so I was playing tons of stuff, and I had like multiple groups. I did drop off slightly in college. Like I've never in my entire life had a period where like I just wasn't playing board games and card games, but I did less in college. But then I realized that for those watching and listening, we had a rule that you had to have something co-op in here, because obviously.
This is the 300th episode of One Stop
Exactly.
Podcast.
So I was trying to figure out like what the most formative co-op game for me was, and I played Lord of the Rings, Reiner Knizia's Lord of the Rings. I was playing that end of high school into college when that came out. But that one we didn't play a ton, and I played it solo more than I played it co-op. So I was like just digging through BGG trying to find like which one is it gonna be, which one is it gonna be, and it was this one we played a ton of, and it was before pandemic. Great game. Arkham Horror, I guess it's 2nd edition, the Fantasy Flight release of Arkham Horror. Man, we used to play the heck out of that. And we were playing a ton of Fantasy Flight at that point anyway. Descent, 1st edition, we loved. Runebound, I think it was 2nd edition at that point. A little bit later, Battlestar Galactica, we were really into like Hidden Trader for a while. Like I had a few different groups like kind of at the end of college, going out of college. But yeah, Arkham Horror is one that I like distinctly remember playing a ton of co-op. And I don't know, it didn't really stand out to me because I've been playing D&D all my life, so that kind of feels a little cooperative in some ways. And again, I played Lord of the Rings, but that's the first one I remember. Like
D&D is a co-op game. I will defend that. It is a co-op game.
I mean,
I cooperated with my friends.
It depends. It depends on the game master, I would say.
Don't split the party.
But yeah. So Arkham Horror was a great one, and I went deep into like the expansions for that one, and that game gets it's so unwieldy when you have like all these sideboards and all this like crazy stuff going on. But yeah, that's my co-op offering because my last one's not going to be co-op either.
I mean, we just found out that Mike's not a co-op gamer. I don't know that anybody's shocked here. No, I'm just the least cooperative gamer. He called all the co-op games. He called them all. You look at his competitive shelves though, full of games. No, like
that lies and mendacity, sir. I don't believe it.
Nice. All right. Well, my number two is I actually never drop games. I know everybody said, look, I played video games all growing up too. It was always part of my life, video games, as a bunch of people here said. But I always played card games. They never left me. Even through college, we used to play spades every day after class. We'd get together. There was also lots of drinking games that happened in college, of course. But then when I got back into games, actually Puerto Rico was the first one I played, believe it or not. Well,
no, Jason, he's playing the awesome new edition that you're working with.
That's not enough. that is not part of.
But it's
Peter's
not.
Gamers
That's not my number one.
story.
It's my number two. It's not my number two. My number two is also going to be a cooperative game though, because then I started demoing games for Z-Man Games, and this is the game I probably still to this day have played more than any other game, and that's Original Base Pandemic. I demoed that game 4 times a night for like a year straight. I played hundreds of games of Base Pandemic, hundreds of games. I played, I watched, and I never got bored of it. I kept playing through it, and it just did something for me, and it was just the joy it brought to the people around me, the way that people just worked with each other, and they weren't yelling at each other, and maybe there was some alpha gaming, but I don't know. It seems like it was never a big deal in any of the games that I played with people. And like then you hear like all across the country people are like playing it and having these problems with it. I barely saw that. And I demoed it hundreds of times. And I barely saw, if there was alpha gaming, it's just discussions. And people were like, oh, why don't you think about this? Oh, okay, that's a good idea. And then you just move on. So I don't know who these alpha gamers were, but I don't know. I guess I kicked them out of our game store before I, without even knowing it. But yeah, no, Pandemic had such a huge influence on my life, and I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't realize I was going to become this co-op guy at that point, and trust me, I still love tons of competitive games. But Pandemic really did something to me, and then when I got to play through Pandemic Legacy Season 1, just brought all that love back. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is still one of the best gaming experiences I've had in my life. So that was it for me, though. My number 2, Pandemic. All right, Steve, your big number 1. Let's get the reveal.
I'm glad you said Pandemic, because that's going to relate to this next game we're going to talk about. Because I've talked about a couple of competitive games, of course, and this last one is going to talk about how I got to co-op specifically. And so my brother-in-law would come down and visit my wife and I frequently. I felt like it was almost every month, every other month. And every time he came down, we would sit down and play a game. And then we wanted the heck out of this game. And that was Defenders of the Realm, which is honestly basically Fantasy Pandemic. So
for the podcast listeners, that's Jason who was throwing up over there.
Jason doesn't like anything we play.
Steve knows my feelings. We did a whole pod on it.
Yes. But yes, we played a ton of this game. Like every time you visit, we play it. And I still remember to this day, my wife picking the dice, and it was a really tense moment, and she decided to play a little tune before she rolled the dice and roll the dice, and we're like, what the heck was that? And these moments just like stood in me, and it kind of like made me realize how much I enjoyed the cooperative experience, like all hanging around the table, joining together to play this game. And not only that, but it is also the game that got me into Kickstarter, because there was some expansions come out on Kickstarter. I'm like, what is this thing? So it got me to sign up for it and back those, and got me into like even going to try and design aspects of the game. So there was a contest to try to create some cards for the game. So I've got my name on one of the cards. That's my only claim to fame for game design, just a tiny name on the card, which basically
it's not nothing. It's any game design is game design. It doesn't take long. It's like a little seed that's just germinating inside of you, Steve. One of these days, you never know. Next Gloomhaven's coming out, buddy.
There you go.
And also, Steve, speaking from experience, there are many game designers who've been designing multiple games for decades and do not have a single game on a shelf
that is very
with their name on it yet, sadly.
Fair enough. But yeah, that one was one that we played all the time. It was always Defenders of the Realm, and then find the worst bad movie we can on Netflix. Like, had to be like a 1-star movie, and watch that while we drank. So
sounds like a good night. Sounds like a great night, actually.
Exactly. That was our night. It was always a blast.
All right, Jason, are you gonna? Is your number 1 my number 2? If we got a pandemic coming.
Well, okay, so I have to build up to this a little bit, just to continue the story, right? So I play a lot of Munchkin in grad school, and then like stuff happened, and so like I started to get back into D&D again, And then I went to a convention for D&D, played D&D all weekend and all kind. It was when they were play testing fifth edition.
Wow.
So like you got to put input into fifth edition and play the original mod and stuff. So I was really geeking out into it. And then they had this game that was based on D&D, and they're like, "This is a Euro game. What's a Euro game?" And it was Lords of Waterdeep, which was before release. So like that game would be number 3, legit. Like I mean, it totally blew my mind. Like this new type of game is nothing I like ever played before. No dice, right? Everything I played before had dice or cards or whatever. This was a strategy. So like I played I mean it's up there. If I got it, it would fall apart, legit. Because I play the tar out of that thing. But that cannot be because that breaks the rules. It's called One Stop Co-op Shop. But from there, it was a very short jump to the co-op games. So we're talking. Here we go. There it is. You see that? Look at that beautiful. There it is. Yes. Look at all that Pandemic right there. All of it. I have every single thing for it. Pandemic history and World of Warcraft, all that kind of stuff. I'll give a different one though, because you sang the praises, Pete, and it probably is the right answer, but I'll give one that's just like my 1.5 of like, wow, this is freaking cool. And Mike, you know what this one is.
I mean, not.
I came to your house and we played this, and it was a joy.
Burgle Brothers.
No! Space Alert.
I saw you point next to Space Alert. I was like, oh, he's going to say Space Alert. And then I completely forgot that game existed.
I'm pointing to Space Alert, and Mike's like, Burgle Brothers. So I think my friend John Simintov, there was a video game maker, and it was like a group of 5 people, and I kind of like drifted in there, and he introduced it to me, and it was Space Alert was my first cooperative game. So like Pandemic came like a couple steps later, and I got really deep at Pandemic. But Space Alert, like that 5 minutes or whatever it is of like the programming and the yelling at each other and failing and like, okay, we got to do it again, we got to do it better. And like eventually you kind of get better at it. You specialize. Like I'm gonna go down. I'm the person that goes down. I got the B, and I'm gonna do this. And who's gonna jiggle the mouse? And like we only played the one game, Mike. I could have played that all night.
I have often played that all night.
I could honestly have like, because we did okay, like we didn't die, but we didn't we got hit. That's not acceptable. And we didn't play with like the double letters, and we didn't play like, so like I seriously like the thought of Space Alert brings utter joy to my face every time, and so like it was Pandemic, it was Space Alert, and it was Sentinels of the Multiverse. That was probably like my trinity of co-op games to kind of give me a good sense. Okay, you got your real time, you got your strategy, you got your wham bam, thank you ma'am card game, and those other ones too, like Zombicide, okay, and a couple other ones, but like that's those 3 good ones really got me in there. So like 3 amazing like timeless games. So then I'll my official call will be Space Alert because it was the first one.
And that almost kicked Arkham Horror out for me, Jason. I love that game.
So, Jason, I got to know, though. Let's get a quick review in here. What did you think of the World of Warcraft Pandemic, the newest one? We did, too. Mike and I played it on the stream last weekend, the weekend before.
I thought it was great. I want to play it again. Like that was like Rise of Rome level, where I was like, this is great. The second I played it, I wanted to play it immediately.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite. I mean... because I'm a World of Warcraft fan too. I'm a huge, massive World of Warcraft fan, and I felt like the dungeons could have been more interesting. Sure. Like you're there, and it's like, okay, card. You haven't really done anything. Like they could have. I think there was a lot more design room to do something a little bit more interesting. Because I get it, the instances and the dungeons and stuff. So then you go from there, and then you go you do the same thing with the boss, which is like a longer track, and it's like that is not to me more exciting. And the boss is actually less lethal than like the dungeons. So like I think there was just some missed opportunities there. But I mean, it's Pandemic, and very underrated thing, you can play solo with one hand. It's the only Pandemic you can play solo with one hand. I really appreciate that. So I mean, it's good.
We had like the most exciting finish too. So it was just a great time playing it, and that was all of our first times playing. So I definitely need to get it to the table again. I'm super excited.
I've played it 15, 20
Yeah,
times.
and the one
at this
thing we were
point.
worried
Yeah,
about
it's
is
good.
would it hold up to 15 or 20 plays, right? Like that, because there seemed to be a lot of samey stuff in it.
I'm sorry, I just gotta say for a second. I think this is Howard. Howard just said, "Wake up, Bairnt." In the chat.
I mean, we're not talking about dungeon crawls, but let's.
Well, we're about
We're
to be
aliens,
right. It's
like,
Jason's
yeah,
turn.
We're
Yes.
saving things.
Well, no,
not
we're getting to
destroying things,
Colin's
so
number
Bairnt
one
doesn't care.
first. So, Colin,
Oh,
Colin, what's
right.
your number one? Well, everybody knows I love LCGs, so it's got to be an LCG. And there's one of them that kicked all the rest to the curb. We talked about Arkham Horror. We talked about Lord of the Rings, but Marvel Champions is by far the best LCG out there. There is nothing better than Marvel Champions. All those games that I've been talking about, I've been touting for years. I burned my copy of Lord of the Rings because Marvel Champions is so great.
What is that accent? The high-pitched voice is one thing. The accent.
I don't know where the accent came from. It came in.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Colin. I'm from Minnesota.
I don't even.
See, I thought it sounded like Mr. Hanky. Do y'all
I
remember
think that was a
character
Mr.
from, South
Hanky.
Park?
I think that was Mr. Hanky. Actually, I think that's where I got that from. That is like subconsciously that just came to my mind. Yeah. So,
By the way, funny context for everybody who doesn't know. Colin is all in on Lord of the Rings, all in on Arkham Horror, and Marvel Champions is literally the only one he has, I think, completely called at this point. Has nothing
that's
left.
not what I just said. I said it's my number one. Actually, it's more Cartman than Mr. Hanky. I think that's a Cartman. But nice. All right. Well, now that we know Colin's favorite game of all time, let's go to you, Barrett. What's your number one, or not number one of all time? That's not what this list
Yeah, I was going to
is.
say, like, this isn't number one of all time at all.
This is number one of all time. Well, that's not what we're doing here. We're talking about games that got us into gaming and where we come from. So I talked about my early, where I played a lot of Dungeons, Dragons, all that kind of stuff. Then I got into a real competitive mode. But all through this, no matter where I was in this like whole board gaming extravaganza, there was always one game I would always go back to. That was Aliens.
Yeah.
That Aliens from Leading Edge Games. If you know anything about me, you knew this game was coming. I played pieces. My box is like duct taped together. My map has like what do you call it? It's a packing tape on it to try to keep it from shredding into pieces. So I played this a huge amount. It's a co-op game, so this is like my co-op gaming experience and getting into it. Played it with tons of different people. We all had great experiences every time I play it. My favorite movie is Aliens. I love this. I love the genre. I love the theme. I love the whole like everything about the whole like world that this comes from is just amazing to me. I've always enjoyed the Aliens atmosphere. So from there, I thought, well, I'm going to keep playing these. We had some people that would come over and play games with us, and I was like, I want to get a game that's fun, because games with people who thought the best way to win a game is to beat the person who owns the game. Like, just go attack them. Like, take. So three people are gang up on me. I'm like, this is no fun. There is no fun in here at all. Just because I know the game doesn't mean I'm a master of this game. So that's when I started grabbing cooperative games. And the first one I actually got was this thing off Kickstarter. I'd never heard of this Kickstarter thing. So next thing you know, I'm playing Myth. Yes, Myth. You can play Myth. You can play Myth. It works. It does work.
That was your first Kickstarter?
It was my first Kickstarter with Myth.
I'm so sorry.
That was my first Kickstarter. That and Kingdom Death were my first two. I went back with those two. Those were my first two Kickstarters. And we played Myth like crazy. We had a lot of fun playing it. We still have lots of fun about this game because, of course, if you've ever played it, you activate the darkness by doing different card play. And as you play it, the darkness will act.
Uh-oh.
The darkness
One, like, eventually it just became fun to like play a card, be like, I'm going to play this card. Well, what's that going to do? Nothing, but that activates the darkness. Oh, I know, but that's okay. Scroach is going to get hurt, and that's fine. Okay, and so now Scroach like, but I want to play my defense card. Nope, Eric already played that card. We're just going to let you get hit with these things. So we're still kind of semi-co-op, I guess you could say, even though it's supposed to be co-op. We just had all these fun moments when we played these co-op games, and so we just continued down that trend. I've never looked back. We've always played just co-op games. We have a great time doing. Sometimes we play competitive games with the kids, but even then we get a lot of, I'm going to hit that Ridley and things like that, which doesn't go real good in the house, so we don't want violence, so Again, we stay with the co-op a lot. So it was Aliens who brought me from 1989, I think is when the game came out, to now, and I'm still playing that game to this day. So this is my way of getting into co-op games, was Aliens by Leading Edge Games. You'll never find the game except on a secondary market.
Is that the one you guys keep playing on the stream for Extra Life?
Yeah, for
It
Extra
is.
Life.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
I'll have to join that next year.
It's
next
so
year,
much fun, man. All you do is just roll 10-siders and just laugh and cry all at the same time. Your guys get destroyed
And die.
It's so
Wait a
much
minute.
Yeah.
What was that game with the pieces? The Durger or something like that? The one with the doors that you stuck in? Drunagor?
Drunagor?
You
Oh,
told me
Crown
you
of
didn't
the
like that because
Drunagor?
all you were doing was rolling D10s. What's going on here, Bairnt?
That was D20.
Oh,
D20
okay.
is
Oh,
the difference.
I'm sorry. So it's twice as bad? Is that what I'm
There's
saying?
the difference there. When you miss an Aliens, it's kind of funny because you're like, oh, this could go really bad for us. But when you miss that game, it's like you just spent like 8 minutes like strategizing a turn to roll this D20 2. That was
I
awesome.
gotcha.
That was 8 minutes. That was super fun to just miss.
Gotcha. So, and
Bairnt, a second ago you said
That's
Ridley.
my son. Yes, he's named after Ridley Scott.
Oh,
Sorry, yes,
okay,
that-
cool,
he-
cool, cool.
he-
Just checking. Did
He
you
was
name him
actually
after
named
Ridley
after
Scott
Ridley
because
Scott, and
Alien
I
is your favorite
saw the
movie?
name on a poster.
That is
He's like,
amazing.
Ridley, what do you think of that? I'm like, you want to name my son after the director of one of my favorite movies of all time? Sure, I'm on board. Let's go.
that's awesome.
I mean, I know he didn't direct
Yeah.
Aliens, but still a great guy.
Yes, that's my son's name. Yes, so I get my other son's name is Bennett, and they have a tendency to, they're brothers. They fight sometimes, and so we try to keep that out of gaming if we can.
Nice. All right,
It's
Mike.
hard, it's so hard to.
Mike, what's
All right, my number one, the most important game I have ever played in my entire life. Not kidding, not exaggerating. This is a competitive one, and the reason is, so I now work 30 hours a week on a YouTube channel because of this game.
crap, I'm gonna have to change my number one, Mike.
We have
I think we're gonna have the same number one.
We have 300 episodes. No, whatever. We have 300 episodes of a podcast because of this game. Peter and I have our third design board game, actually 4, hopefully coming out this year because of this game. And this is not a game that I love at all anymore. I don't even own it anymore. But Battlegrounds
Dang it,
Fantasy
Mike!
Warfare.
You stole my
So
number
those who
one.
don't know-
Yes.
Oh wait, did I really? Oh well, I mean, this is kind of a
Yes.
cooperative story anyway. So I'll start it off and Peter can finish. So Battlegrounds Fantasy Warfare. If you don't know, it's kind of like I've been playing war games my entire life. They didn't really come into the list much, but this is a sort of like a 40K-ish or a Warhammer Fantasy Battle game, but only with cards. So you can get an entire army for $20 instead of like $300, $400, and you don't have to paint it. So I was playing it solo a ton, but I could never find any opponents. So I went into this random game store because I was still going into random game scores, and they had like the decks I wanted, and they were holding it for me, and I got them. And I was coming out, and I saw like a couple of guys talking about Battleground Fantasy Warfare, and I think they were playing a game at the table. I was like, "What the heck? You guys know what this game is? Like, what are the chances this random dumb game that I've been desperately hoping for an opponent in and like playing solo that someone would have this game like on the table at the store I'm going to?" And that was Peter, and
I don't remember. It was
Peter? Do
either
you remember?
Rob or Jerry. I can't remember which one.
I feel like it was Rob, but anyway. So from that. Well, Peter, why don't you continue the story? Because
It was exactly the same story. Yeah, so then we decided to start a league where we actually played every week Battleground Fantasy Warfare. Mind you, we didn't know each other. Like, I mean, I knew Rob a little from the game store from my days demoing there, like the Z-Man games. But yeah, we decided to start a league. It was Rob, it was one of his friends, Steve, it was Jerry, it was Mike, it was me. I think that might have been it. Yeah,
those were the
but
main
then,
ones, yeah.
so Mike and I think you were my first opponent, and you killed me. Absolutely destroyed me in the game, but I wrote a BGG story about it. Like, it's still there to this day,
Yes!
where I was looking for this artifact in the thing, and I found the artifact, and then my guys, like, got killed, and, like, it was this heroic story of, like, the only creative writing I've ever done in my entire life was a story of Mike and my first game of Battleground Fantasy Warfare, where if you'd watched it, it was just a massacre. Mike just destroyed me over and over, but I came up with this epic story based on it. Yeah, it's still there. If you look Battleground Fantasy Warfare's, like, session reports or whatever, I just wrote... just like I said, my only creative writing in my life, but it was based on that. But yeah, no, I mean, without that game, we probably never would have talked, because you weren't a regular. I was a regular for the Saturday night game nights there, and yeah, you didn't come up for that. But yeah, if it wasn't for Battle,
I literally have never set foot in that store, I think. maybe once before, except for that one
Yeah,
time.
and never again, except for like literally to come play our games, which would then started, that formed a game group at my house. And then one day I was like, hey, I'm designing a game. Does anybody want to help me playtest? And Mike was the only sucker that actually agreed to it. And then he started like helping me with ideas and stuff. And I was like, do you want to be my co-designer? And Mike's like, yeah, go ahead and take it back over.
And that game that we worked on that night has almost been published like 5
by
times.
several well-known
does not
publishers,
exist.
in fact, as well.
But yeah, so I mean, and if I'd never met Peter, I would never have gotten into game design with him. We started the podcast because we wanted to kind of do game discussions and game reviews from a game designer perspective, which we weren't hearing too much of, and focus on cooperative games. So the podcast would never have happened. And we wanted to
play a bunch of cooperative games because that's what we were designing. So we said, let's do our research, play all these new games, see what they're doing well, and see what we can take from them. And so that was the whole concept behind, I mean, I never thought we'd get more than like 10 or 15 episodes. Honestly, I was like, how many cooperative games are going to come out? Right? I was like, there's no way we can have a whole podcast just about cooperative games. We'll just, we'll do this for a while and like do some research, and we're talking about them and playing these games anyway. Why not just record it? How hard could it be?
So yeah, I mean, it's a dual entry, but not. Maybe you all would be here in some other form. Who knows how the river of time like spins. I know Jason would have still been doing his stuff, and Bairnt would still be at Meet Me at the Table. And I think Steve probably still would have gotten together with Colin. But yeah, I mean, like this particular group, these particular like outputs. I mean, when Colin quit the channel, I was the one who like kind of covered for a little while. So I don't know if there would be a One Stop Co-op Shop YouTube channel. I mean, yeah, it's just crazy to kind of imagine like the different ways things might have gone if I'd not gone to that random game store and seen a dinky game that I don't own anymore.
I still think I have
Peter,
mine. I actually have all my stuff. It's actually right here next to me in a bag. The bag we used to play with. I cut out felt maps. So they would be like, now you'd get neoprene mats, right? But I cut out felt maps so we could have the exact battleground size at the beginning of the game. We didn't have to like measure it out every time. That bag is literally still sitting next to me, right here in my game design room and game playing room. So
let me get this straight, Peter. You still have the game, but Mike culled his.
I mean, shocking.
I mean, are you surprised? Is anyone surprised?
But honestly, the story of One Stop Co-op Shop, so that was the podcast. That's how we started the podcast. But really, Jason's the one that got us all together. I mean, Jason formed this Discord group. You want to talk about that, Jason? And you're like, yeah, Slack channel. That's what it was.
Slack channel? Yeah.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that.
No, but I mean, honestly, none of us would be here.
Well,
I don't think. Again, you and I might have been doing our thing, Mike, but I don't think we would have all gotten together without Jason. So,
is that how we met Colin and got him on the? Oh wow, you're right. That's Jason. Yeah, Peter's right. You were another huge.
I mean, it would have happened. It's a small world. I will just kind of like jumpstart a little bit. Like so, I mean, I was running the podcast. I was doing Every Night is Game Night, and I don't know. I was like, you run a solo podcast, and I just don't want to. I don't want to be alone. So like, I just had the idea of reaching out to the people who are also doing solo stuff and have a Slack channel, and it was cool. Like it was you, it was Rolling Solo, it was Ant Lab, it was Liz later.
Was Jeremy on there for a little while?
Jeremy, not really. Okay. People would hop in and out, like Mike Licio hopping in and out. Who else? I mean, just Albert from One Player Guild. A couple other people. And yeah, I mean, it was throwing stuff at a wall. Like I have a lot of those. Just kind of throwing stuff at a wall, and that one happened to bear a lot of fruit. Although what I will say is, I mean, it's not. We're the only ones that do what we do. Like in terms of the solo co-op focus. So I think we would have found each other eventually.
Definitely.
I really do. So that is part of the story. But I think, I think we get to this road. Like all roads lead to
Yeah, and then Mike took over I think before we get to Mike taking over the YouTube channel, was Steve's
Well, doesn't take over. I was a shepherd for a little while, because then Steve came in pretty quickly, and then Bairnt, and then Colin came back, and then Jason started doing awesome stuff. So yeah, I was a
bridge.
You're a bridge?
Bridge.
This is your sign language for bridge?
It's been a long day, y'all. I was watching my students take standardized tests. What is this thing that arcs over water? An arc.
About standardized proctoring
A
and
buttress.
nothing.
But actually, Steve comes into the story before that, because Steve and Colin decided to do a podcast before Colin stopped doing the YouTube channel. Steve and Colin started One Stop Co-op Shop podcast. So we were Co-op Cast back then. So episode 0 is actually
Right.
Yeah, we
Co-op
started as
cast.
Co-op Cast, and then Steve and so Steve, you want to take over? You and Colin made a podcast. How'd that start?
It started with the YouTube channel, actually, because I was chatting with Colin, and it's like, man, I like what you're doing. You're doing a great job here. I love co-ops, because this is the point in my life where, like, okay, I'm in co-ops. I love the co-op genre. And I was like, hey, I want to really help out. And so I wound up, I'm not sure how many people know this, but I wound up helping out Colin behind the scenes, actually. Well, he would edit the video, get everything ready to go, and he would send me it in advance, and I would scrub through it, read the rule book, and then look for rules errors before it got live. Yeah. And so I was doing that for, I don't know how long I was doing that for, a while. And then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to do more. I like this. This is fun. But I know, reading rule books is fun. So don't blame me. So,
I'm with you, Steve. I'm with you.
there you go. I figured you would be. But then it was like, oh, I want to create something too. That'd be kind of fun. So I was like, hey, do you want to do a podcast with me? And so that's where I decided to do the One Stop Co-op Shop podcast. And about the same time, it was like, wait, there's this other cooperative podcast going on here. And it was really funny because we were doing like every other week podcast. And you guys are doing every other week podcast. I'm like, wait a second. And one thing became another. And then one of merging the two.
Right.
And then from the podcast became merging into the YouTube channel. And then the rest is history, basically.
Yep. And then Bairnt came in. Like, he started on the YouTube channel. You just started doing Friday videos, right?
I got into it.
It was a longer journey than that, right, Bairnt? It was a longer journey than
that. It was.
That.
I was watching some of Colin's stuff on some of the Kickstarters, especially like Folklore and things. This is when I was interested in getting some of these games. But then I would get the games, but the groups wouldn't get together because the game group I was talking about, one of them was a bartender. So he really doesn't have weekends very often. So when you get these weekends, it'd be like once every month or two. And all of a sudden I get these games just coming in. I'm like, what do I do with all these games? We're going to get a chance to play them. So I happened to hear Colin say the words, oh, well, I'm from Minnesota, and then in another video he said something like, well, I have 2 kids and all this, and I'm thinking, wait, if he's got a job, 2 kids, and lives in Minnesota, and he does this, I should be able to do this too. And so I just thought, I'm just going to put a game down there and see what happens. And of course, the first game I did was Myth. Put Myth on the table, started playing it, and recorded it. Had a fun time doing it, and then. Steve actually reached out to me he saw my unboxing on Nemesis and said, would you like to do a podcast on that? I'm like, sure, I can do a podcast. And then I finally met up with all you guys at Gen Con like 3 years ago or something. And we were all in the bar there. And then Peter left. And as soon as Peter left, that's when Colin still wasn't doing the channel. You were still in charge of it. He looks at me and goes, why haven't you joined us yet? I was like, I guess I could.
Oh, so Colin recruited you.
Wait, so he recruited you during the break?
Yeah, because he's like, that really helped Mike, because he's struggling sometimes to get a bunch of videos out there. You can maybe get a video out there for him. That'd be great. I'm like, okay, sure. And then sure enough, he comes back and goes, I did 007, I did this one, I did that one. It's like all of a sudden he's recording videos up the wall.
Oh, yeah. Everyone, Colin is hilarious. Colin will be like right now, he's in the middle of like the worst, corporate tax season, like the busiest time of year for him. And he's like, oh, Mike, oh, Steve, Bairnt, Jason, Peter, I think I can only do like, maybe one video every week, maybe one video every other week. And then he's got like 8 videos like ready, like that he's just gonna like slowly drip out. I'm like, what are you doing?
I can barely get one out a week sometimes. Like, how does he? I'm just gonna record all night. Oh my gosh, yeah. And then I brought up the idea of doing a Kingdom Death thing, and then I just thought I'm just gonna do that for the channel, and just did that whole campaign. And like Colin said, I think it's Lord of the Rings one is, if he concludes the saga, he has me beat. But if he doesn't include the saga and split those, I have the longest running series on One Stop right now.
Seventh Continent? One Stop with
yeah.
KDM. Oh yeah, man, that was epic.
1 or 52 videos or something. He said but I thought his Lord of the Rings one was longer. But
you didn't make it to Lord of the Rings doesn't count anyway. That's a bunch of one-offs. You know what I mean? Like even the big saga, Lord of the Rings saga is not that many. Did you go all the way to Lantern Year 30, Bairnt? you survive that long?
No. I got to Lantern Year at 25 is when you have to take on the Watcher, but I didn't realize. But something unlocks earlier where you can attempt things earlier. In case people want to play, you don't want to spoil too much, but you can attempt it. You can attempt to fight this creature earlier if you wish to. And so I chose the year before 25 to fight him, not knowing if that's going to be good or bad. I would have realized that either way I went, it would have been bad.
It would have been bad. It's KDM.
Maybe I'm not going to spoil how the ending went.
Yeah,
but I didn't get to 30 if that's anything.
So then,
and that was a big campaign. I had a fun time playing that one, and I'm going to get back to it again sometime soon. Maybe in the year 2030 when the Gambler chest arrives.
Nice. All right, so Jason, we got that you were there at the beginning. You kind of helped us all meet each other. But what was your introduction to joining One Stop Co-op Shop? I know you did Every Night is Game Night podcast for years and years and years. And then you said, I'm done with it. I'm not doing podcasts anymore. I'm not doing anything else. You did it for 4 years. And then, so how did you get involved with us crazy guys?
So then I did the podcast. It was 190 regular episodes and then 50 preview episodes. So I was busy. And I needed it. I was moving. I didn't have a lot. It was a lot of solo gaming. And, it just kind of kept me going. It was I think Colin would say the same thing. It's my stability, in the middle of all the madness and the chaos and stuff. But then, the COVID hit and, I just felt like the medium of podcasting wasn't, I think I kind of squeezed that juice. I got as much juice out of that fruit as I possibly could. And I wanted to get into video. And at the time, so it was right around then that Black Lives Matter happened, the whole George Floyd and all that kind of stuff. And good old Tom Vassell from the Dice Tower, and I already know Tom because, and again, was on the Dice Tower, so I already had a relationship. So he a bunch of people, and including here One Stop, because I know Mike did one. The fans were asking for people to make statements about Black Lives Matter, and Tom did not knock that one out of the park. He did not say the word Black Lives Matter, and it was kind of no real commitment to anything, just trying to say something. It felt very obvious that he was trying to just say something to placate people, and Tom's not like that. Tom's a really, really good guy, but that's how it came out. And so I made a video. My first video was a statement on Black Lives Matter, and I posted it in the Dice Tower, and I showed it to Tom. I'm like, okay, here's how you do it. And Tom's like, that looks really good. You really, have a good camera presence. You should consider doing more video. So I was like, ooh, bug in the back of my brain. Why not? And then I launched the channel off of that. I launched the channel off of that, and I joined the Dice Tower as a video reviewer. So that happened before everything. So then at that point, I was putting playthroughs in the channel. And I was talking to Colin one night because I was asking Colin, because my videos went out. I didn't have good equipment. So I'm asking Colin about, upgrades and everything. And Colin's just he did the same thing. It's just be on One Stop. I can do that. It's just do it. Just do it. And so Colin just shelf stories is shelf story. Shelf stories, you do your, editorial thing. You don't need, he didn't say it, but basically he did. I don't need playthroughs on shelf stories. And I'm oh, and so I hopped along, and I upgraded. I got a better iPhone, so now the videos look okay, and I recently upgraded my mic, and so the videos are just getting more and more quality, and that's it's been. So that's basically it. It's not really exciting or anything.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting, Jason.
Yeah. Well, I guess the my first video being a statement on Black Lives Matter is that is not a usual path for a content creator. But you're meeting the moment, and I've turned it into different stuff. So I on Shelf Stories I will announce different things I'm going to be doing with the cultural stuff. Moving forward, but you guys will still get my happy fun times gaming stuff.
It's gonna take a break and just review a game sometimes, or
yeah, just or have a romp right now. Another Colin recommendation special Tales from the Loop. I think I'll probably get a review of that
whenever you want, dude.
Nice.
I know when I'm not enthusiastic because the game's been out for about 5 days, and it's because I played it once and I'm I want to play this again. And I'll be honest with you, like that's the roughest time when it's like, when the games are kind of, and I haven't had a ton because I've tried to, gotten a little bit better about like really focusing on stuff that I like. But like when the games get a little bit rough, and that's where Every Night is Game Night started to go rough for me too, because there's a lot of gaming.
Yeah.
It was a gaming podcast, and there was a lot of 7s. There's a lot of 7 out of 10, and I'm happy to make other people happy to recommend something. And I've had, that's a great feeling. It's like, okay, you talked about this in your channel and, I played it, and that's awesome. But I can only play so many of those. So that was another reason I kind of shifted away from reviewing and a lot of gaming content to more like, the stuff I do for y'all is interviews, and I love interviews. And the recent run that I've been on, the industry nuts and bolts run, has been awesome. And I've really, hit another kind of level of depth with the people that are on the show and, hit, stuff from behind the industry. I got an episode 301 is going to be a little bit, it's going to be crazy.
Well, we're looking forward to that for sure. So, any comments or questions from the live chat? I see there's been a lot of discussion out there, but if anybody has any questions for you got us all here. Even me, I'm Colin. So, if you have any questions for any of us.
Even me, y'all. I'm Colin from Minnesota.
Because that's what we all sound like here in Minnesota. Totally. Come on.
Hey, look, I had to come up with a voice.
All I know is what I got out of this is I need to start sending my raw videos to Steve so he can watch them with the rule book.
Yeah, right?
I don't have to be looking for the errors anymore. He can just do it for me.
Yeah, someone upload rules to my brain.
Yeah, that's why I like a lot of lighter games and a lot of Euro games with like 16-page rule books or less, right? Like
that's why I like the 36-page campaign rule book, so I can play it 20 times, and it's not new. It's a 60-week-long campaign. I'm good to go.
Yeah, when Mike gave me Madara, and he's like, "Here you go, play this. We'll review it on the podcast." I literally opened the rule book and I got to page 2, and I'm like, I'm out. Nope. It's like this spiral round bound rule book with a whole bunch of fucking errata. We got it, early preview copy.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was the very first.
Oh my gosh! I was like, nope, I can't do it. Sorry. So Pumpkinhead 76 says, "Hey Colin, how do you survive as Pooh?" I just play Marvel Champions. It's great. And Monopoly. And Warhammer 40K. I'm the gamer. Oh, yes. All right. Well, I don't know if we're going to have any other questions. I know it's kind of last second here, but I think it was good. I mean, we got not only our gamer histories, but the history of OSCS too. So, I mean, that wasn't planned. That was just kind of came out because Mike and I kind of had the start of the story. So that was pretty cool. But yes, if you want to blame anything for OSCS, it's Battleground Fantasy Warfare, at least on Mike and my end. Who would have known?
Wait, and what was Colin's first game?
Monopoly!
I feel like I should know this. I feel like it was like Zeno Shift.
I think it was. It was something like that. Yeah, and it was like at a card table or something. You kept holding the cards up to the camera.
Yeah. We've all grown.
A little bit.
And Jason's the magnet.
Yeah, that was another early one, Xeno Shift, Onslaught, and that was like there were some hits and there were some misses, and that game was a miss.
That game has. I have some fun with that game, but it has some issues.
That game was a miss. It was. Ugh.
Oh man, y'all! I was looking back. I mean, this isn't going all the way back, but I was looking at my old shelf life videos to do that top 10 thing for the patrons, and like my energy is different. Like I feel like I'm not the same person talking. It's just kind of weird to see. I don't know if my life got better or if I just like learned how to fake it better, but yeah, it's odd to look at yourself. Bairnt, if you looked at like old Meet Me at the Table or Jason like really old podcasts.
I actually got a comment from Doug one time when I was starting this, like kind of in about the second video of my 7th Continent playthrough, and he goes, "I don't know what it is, but you seem like you really are enjoying what you're doing now, and it's so much fun to watch." And I was like, it's probably because I finally got over this, like, oh my gosh, I'm on a YouTube thing.
And then you're like, nobody's watching anyway. It's fine.
Your voice on camera, and you're like, I sound like that? Oh my gosh, that really? That's how I sound? That's terrible. So, I mean, but then eventually you start hearing yourself so much more and you realize what you're doing. And it just kind of clicked all of a sudden where I'm like, this is super fun. I'm having a great time doing this now. Instead of thinking like, okay, I got to make sure that I've got everything perfectly right and I do this. Like, no, just play, man. This is going to be fun. We're going to have fun. And I just remember that. And every time I go to do a playthrough, I just start with a breath going like, this is going to be awesome. And it is. Every time I do it, I have such fun time recording videos and making just content. It's just so much fun now even doing the live stuff. You watch the very first live episode, same deal. It's like, greetings, I'm Bairnt from Meet Me at the Table. I'm doing a game today. I'm like, I don't know if this thing's working, but like about the third one, I'm finally going, okay, good. We're going, here we are. Let's have some fun. So like once I kind of got over that initial, okay, am I really doing this phase? That's when it really started becoming who I am.
Yeah, nobody looks back at those first videos. At least I certainly don't, of anything I ever did. And podcast too. I sent episode 0 to my boss the other day because he was looking to get into gaming, and I just sent episode 0 because they're like, oh, those are all our recommendations for like, co-op gamers just getting into it. And I was like, God, I haven't listened to that forever. It's probably terrible. It's probably really bad.
Well, also, I'm sure we have new recommendations for new co-op gamers. There's been a few games. We
probably should redo that episode. I'm sure it was a lot of pandemic and like there's only like 5 games out at that point that were co-op games anyway.
It was Hanabi. It was Forbidden Island.
Forbidden Island was number 1 for both of us, so that's for sure. But yes, Steve has.
Yeah, that would not be my selection anymore.
Steve has been entertaining the audience with his many faces, including his Cartman face. Now he's a Viking. But Steve's wife sold him out here in the chat and said Steve's nighttime reading is rule books. That's how he puts himself to bed. Steve, do you want to defend yourself?
Nope, she's right.
I mean, I do that too most nights.
No,
you guys don't do that. How do you think I cover as many games as I do? I'm reading like at least one rule book every 2 nights.
Once a week, I get 1 game a week to the table.
That's
right? All you get. It's all I get.
I would literally fall asleep on the 3rd word. Like, there's no way.
Yep.
I can't do it. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to cover us for today. Thanks everybody for joining us. Episode 300. You got all of our personal stories. Colin's was the best. I got. If I had to vote, I'm voting Collins. His diversity, his everything. It's just amazing. Amazing what he did.
Hey, I'm going home. I'm gonna take my gun and I'm gonna take the channel and I'm gonna do it.
Nice. Jason is a man of many talents. We don't get to see this very often. I like having us all here, and I mean.
And he filks songs.
No. I mean, this is a whole new side. Jason and I are gonna have to do karaoke. So next convention, when like this COVID thing's finally over, our one-stop co-op shop meetup will be at a karaoke bar. Me and Jason and. No way. Yes.
Getting up in cars for the vengeance.
That's awesome. Yes.
Wow.
The Cartman sings "I'm Sailing Away." Classic.
I'm not invited.
You are more
to
than welcome to
karaoke
come,
beer.
Mike. I would just a little bit.
I sing a little bit.
And maybe I'll put that song that you did for Salvation Road at the.
Never mind. We're good. No karaoke. Never mind.
We just need a few more backers.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Oh man.
I'm hoping that our next Kickstarter coming later this year is I don't need to do a song.
Oh no,
for
we're
it,
doing a
but we'll see how
song
it goes.
either way. So whether we need it or not, we're doing a song for sure. Anyway, all right, everybody. Well, it was great having everybody here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all soon.
Later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys.
Yep.
I don't have to say anything. That was it. That was the hey guys. Hey guys, I'm out of here. Screw you guys, I'm out of here.
You know that Colin's favorite game is not Marvel Champions? It's not even close to Marvel Champions. You
I
know
love how
that?
Colin's now become Cartman. They both start with C. I mean, it's good. We got it.
The evolution is complete.
All right, everybody. Bye.